Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
In this edition of Global Print, I'm going to talk to you about the invitation extended by some of the world's biggest economies, known as the G7, to Prime Minister Narendra Modi to their summit in the UK next month, and why this is interesting in the wake of the severe criticism by the Western media of Prime Minister Modi's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. But before that, dear viewer, I'd like to make an appeal to you. Please do subscribe and pay just a little bit for the Print's free, fair, objective and unhyphenated journalism. You know that we have been bringing to you the best news stories and videos over the last year of the pandemic and even before, so please do continue to support us. You will find the links for the subscription in the description of this video, both for an international audience as well as for a domestic one. Now back to my column Global Print, in which I talk about the invitation extended by the G7 to Prime Minister Modi to India to participate in the G7 summit next month. India is a special invitee along with Australia, South Korea, and South Africa. Now the reason this is significant is because these are the seven world's biggest economies in the democratic world, led by the US, UK, Germany, France, Japan, Italy, and plus the European Union, which is an eighth member, and why they have invited Prime Minister Modi, especially in the light of the severe criticism by the Western media, by Western newspapers, such as the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post. Now, these are American papers, but you've seen in London, you've had the Guardian, you've had the Times of London, you've had several other papers across Germany, France, Italy, as well as in the non-Western world, being severely critical, not just of the way India has broken its own daily record in terms of COVID-19 infections, but also mortality. But it's not just criticism of the government, it's personal criticism of Prime Minister Modi, of his hubris, of his arrogance, of the manner in which he failed to prepare for the second horrible wave by declaring the end of the pandemic, not just at the World Economic Forum a few months ago, but his own minister, the health minister, Dr. Harshvardhan, who sort of declared that this is over and that India has done much better than the other countries in the world. Now, of course, India is paying a huge price for this in terms of such unnecessary deaths for lack of oxygen, medicines, and other shortages that are staring us in our face on a daily basis. And even as we speak, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar is in London. He participated in this along with, like I said before, Australia, South Africa, as well as South Korea. So here are the 3 points I make in my column. The first is that just look at the invitees to this G7 summit. You have, like I said already, the 7 most powerful or amongst the most powerful countries in the world. Remember that China and Russia, now China is the second largest economy, still hasn't overtaken the US, but China is not an invitee, is not a member of the G7, nor is Russia. So it's the world's 7 largest democratic economies, and that's a very, very important distinction. So you have these 7 large democratic economies, you have the European Union, that's the 8th, and then you have the 3 special invitees that I talked about. So look at what's common in between all of them. In this room, when all these members sit, you will have all the members of the Quad, which is the US, Australia, India, and Japan. You will have the major non-NATO allies like Australia, Japan. India is not a major non-NATO ally, but it's a non-NATO ally. So there's a difference between major non-NATO ally and non-NATO ally. But in effect, India and the US have a very, very strong strategic and defense partnership, as we've seen over the last few years, as India has signed the various defense foundational agreements, whether it's the SISMOA, the LIBOA, and others such like. So actually, when you look at the big picture, the G7++, along with these other countries, is really a big, broad coalition of economies or of nations that is against China. So that's the first point I'm making. So it doesn't matter whichever way you cut the envelope. You've got the NATO allies, you've got the non-NATO allies, you've got the Quad members, and you've got the G7 members anyway. So that's the first. The second point that I'm making is that it's the pandemic that is shaping a new world order. That 30 years ago, on the ashes of the Soviet Union, the Cold War ended and there was a new world that was created in which a unipolar world or a superpower, that was the US. Now, in these last 30 years, we've seen the decline of that superpower, whether it was for a variety of reasons, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the rise of another power called China. Now, if you look at the way this pandemic has affected the world, and some of the statistics you will find is that the pandemic has, of course, affected the US the worst. India is second on that list. There is Brazil, there's France, and then there's Turkey. China, incidentally, where the coronavirus started a year and some months ago, has dealt with the COVID crisis very, very well. So in terms of both infections as well as mortality, it is 96th on the list. There's less than 5,000 people have died in China in total since the infection was first discovered, within quotes, on the 30th of December 2019. India, on the other hand, especially these days, is logging on a daily basis 3,500 to 4,000 deaths on a daily basis. So when I talk about the second pole, and let me be very clear, these are informal poles around which other countries are gravitating. So the democratic nations will informally gravitate around the US because it is still the world's most powerful nation, notwithstanding the fact that it has been bleeding by these wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and elsewhere. And the second informal pole is China. Again, a country that is rising rapidly, has been able to manage its COVID infections very well. And around China, you will see countries like Russia. Although I will warn you to be a little careful here, because it's not as if Russia is about to become a junior partner of China. I know that you have heard this in many places, that Russia is a junior partner of China, and I would urge you to be a little bit more circumspect in taking that at face value. Because while the Russians, a former superpower, do have a very, very close strategic partnership with the Chinese, especially a defense partnership where the Russians sell them both equipment as well as technology, but they are not about to become a junior partner. I mean, Vladimir Putin, the president, you cannot call him a Democrat by many standards, because he has just changed the law which allows him to be president until 2036, will nevertheless have a very close friendship with Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, but he will also maintain his own strategic ambiguity. Having said that, the Russians will gravitate around the second informal pole, which is China. That's the second point I'm making. And the third point, coming back to why the G7 has invited Prime Minister Modi to the summit next month, and like I said, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has just been in London, continues to be in London for the bilateral part of his visit. Now, the world understands that India is going through a terrible crisis. On a daily basis, people all over the world are reading, looking at television pictures of what's happening in India, lack of oxygen, people struggling to breathe, people dying in hospitals because there's no oxygen, no medicines. So the world has decided to come to India's aid because it would aid any country that is going through this terrible time right now. It would aid India even more because it is a big country with a big population, 1.3 billion people very talented, creative, with a billion dreams. And second, this is the only country in the world the West recognizes that has the potential to take on China. Now, this COVID crisis has pretty much hit India where it hurts very badly. So it will take a while for India to emerge from this crisis and to get back to where it was before COVID, and to be able to potentially take on the Chinese. So whether we talk about the Quad nations, India being the largest member of the Quad, both Australia and Japan, the total population is about 125 million people. That's the population of Bihar. The US is 350 million people. But India, closest to China, 1.3 billion people, not as economically strong, of course, and right now in pretty bad shape. But in the future, which is the only country that can in any way constrain China, it will be India. So that's the second reason. And the third reason is that the world recognizes that at least these Western democracies in the G7 recognize that even though Prime Minister Narendra Modi is being hauled over the coals by its own Western media, he still remains by far the most powerful leader across the Indian national landscape. Despite the victory of Mamata Banerjee in Bengal, there is no leader today on the national scene that can challenge Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the top spot. And I think the world recognizes that therefore it must learn or relearn to deal with Prime Minister Modi. Warts and all, huge warts. Yes, there have been huge mistakes that have been made by the Prime Minister himself, by Prime Minister Modi himself, by failing to look at what could have happened with the second wave, by going ahead with the Kumbh Mela, by allowing election rallies to take place, not wearing a mask. You've seen enough pictures of Prime Minister Modi himself not wearing a mask to these election rallies. But at the end of the day, there is no alternative to Prime Minister Modi. And that's what I've said in my column Global Print, that the world has decided to help India because it's a country that needs the assistance, all the assistance it can get right now. And despite the fact that Prime Minister Modi has been accused in very severe terms of mishandling the crisis, right now there is nobody else. So please do read my column, and thank you for watching Global Print, and I look forward to your ideas and to your suggestions.